twice the quantity of which I can presume you have requested the double cheeseburger meal and the meticulously cut French fries. Utilizing the calculation methods of arithmetic intertwined with the derivatives of common sense instilled among certain men, I can come to the conclusion that you owe of the American currency $6.53, this including a percentage of tax derived from the tax and or tariff placed upon the state. $3.47 existing as your change for the currency rate abide by thee. An interjection of the male-infused chromosomes, supposing to have rebuttal with a robust remark that indeed Jimmy is not conforming to the principles indoctrinated by man, then of which concerning the proper hitherto method of pressing the corresponding button with the entity which it is concerned, which is of a capitalistic Venturian method. The daguerreotypes of sustenance embodied within a plastic encompassed shell be the main point of concern regarding purchases. Jimmy then proceeds to affirm his nonconformist method in a near narcissistic method which shall be addressed later within the story as he openly states his intelligence to a clearly mentally inferior being, aliased as Skeet, by revealing his methods of calculations which exist in the confines of his nucleus and possibly in his akin mentality with that of a great enlightened despot. Skeet then proceeds to claim witchcrafty upon this somewhat mortal fallacy, observing the countenance presented upon his animation. He deems Jimmy a sorcerer of godlike powers and a mere facetious matter upon the more satirical point of capitalism, somewhat alluding to his lackish mental apathetic state. Skeet then recites the slogan existing as, "Big thankies from Spankies" in a rebuke against Jimmy's condescending tone, claiming that he did not quote thy scriptures or principles presented to him within the employee guidelines. Jimmy, living as the mortal being within existential crisis that he is, proceeds to reply with an obvious nonconformist method of verbose which we can affirm his instructional behavior as a being. Touching on points of individualism and his mere cliché theme of nativeness among the viewer, he proceeds to discuss the method of developing polyunsaturated fats and triglycerides, further informing the viewer of his comprehensive theme upon many aspects of life, a plethora attributed to that of an enlightened scientist finding the chemical makeup and compounds of the food. Assuming that by polyunsaturated fats, he means a multiple compound makeup derived from that of chemical resistors involving a semi-permeable membrane within the conscience, we could in fact determine whether or not the drivel spouted from Jimmy's mouth proved to be that of a Neanderthal or that of an alderman. Triglycerides, coming from the prefix tri meaning three, could indeed further support this indecisive and inconclusive memoir of what was or what had become of the sustenance known as a big thanky, to come from the established branch of phylum nor phloem, concluding that indeed, this remark was short of a misnomer. Skeet then begins to have an existential crisis in realizing that the mere mental perception of life and death itself could be seen upon a spectrum, that life was simply a river flowing and he a small leaf drifting among the masses of fleshy blips. Mere flesh and blood could not contain this mental aspiration to become like Jimmy, yet something frightened him. Was it not the aspect of being a genius that flushed throughout his countenance and mind? Could his mind truly grasp that of a philosophical idealist such as Jimmy? Rousseau might argue indifferently. Quoting from his Genevan Philosophies, "What wisdom can you find that is greater than kindness?" This quote I believe flashed through Skeet's head as Jimmy's political theories tore down his infrastructural beliefs that were known as his ideals from birth to death. Jimmy's words reverberated throughout Skeet's ears and mind, almost existing as an interconnected part of his soul, but then no more. This lapse of memories were broken by even more interjections from the narcissistic, egotistical brain of Jimmy Neutron which Skeet could no longer contain. A brief period of silence, and no more, carpe diem swept through Skeet's mind as he began to realize that the present is now and the past is past. He must continue working for the bourgeoisie in somewhat of a proletariat outlook upon the near idealized form of Marxism vested within Jimmy's mind. Fading black for a few, thrice returning Jimmy and Skeet to the stage of life, a mere animation upon what astonished him as a being. Daguerreotype of money. Daguerreotype of money. "Alas, I have found the minute objective of a mere inconvenience," Skeet quoted. From the guttural sounds and croaks akin to that of a god himself, Skeet rang out from the deepest chasms within his life's touch of breath and said, "Big thankies from Spankies." Taking hold of the stage and climax of his life, the pinnacle point of a man's well-do being and life, stirred within him, causing him to yet again be deterred by the young boy named of Jimmy Neutron, the antagonistic purveyor and philosopher, to berate upon his strictures of occupation objectivism. Noticing a slight discrepancy among the floor of his established restaurant, a small portion of minerals there remained. It lied within the ocular lens of near flesh and blood, seething at the teeth like a rabid dog. The aesthetics came to a halt as the mood of the story was set still and focused upon the sodium chloride, otherwise referred more commonly as monosodium glutamate, or E3621 in certain aspects of genetic makeup. This monosodium glutamate was the pivotal point around Skeet keeping his immaterialist job as he succumbed to mere faith of sectionalism. No, not this, more secular than not. Skeet, taking note of Jimmy's arrogance and transcendentalist views, affirmed in his beliefs that the mere minerals were known as salt, not sodium chloride. Back and forth the chokes of voices could be heard between the two, akin to that of political parties mudslinging each other, and then all went quiet again. Skeet for a moment began to realize the epochal point in his life. This, nagging at him as if a nail had been plunged into his spine, the monotonous ringing of those souls encased within perdition. Hell, he thought, no, it is on the brink of heaven? But what is heaven without the spirit and mind that exists within Skeet? He began to think, deeply, more so than he ever had before, and then, silence. Jimmy again broke the silence again and again. It rippled throughout his mind. The cracks of the sails and whips of the wind could be heard in the distance from this figure of light. Enlightenment, he thought, was not so far away. It began an onslaught of thoughts. Mere chemical reactions chamber the human heart's intertwining. The independence of his soul and enlightenment. Crash came the thoughts of Jimmy battering down on the mere intellectually inferior aspects of Skeet's life, numbing it down into pain and arrogance of the soul. A needle now, he thought, in his spine. The existence of man come from that within, not within others. The individualist outlook upon life came to truth as he saw it. A blinding flash of white, and then the players of the stage began to divert their course as a blue-white light of some kind retrieved from within his masses, granting upon him the gift of life. And among them the angel said, "Big MC Thankies from MC Spankies."